This week on the Eurostep.
Klay's hurt, Warriors back down to earth.
Andrew Wiggins, the biggest bust of all time. Or not.
And we preview this year's Hall of Famers. Hi, I'm Oisin Brown and this is the Eurostep on CRC. This week I'm joined by Cillian Loftus.
Yeah.
And Alex Evans.
Welcome back, Oisin, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you for the welcome. I'm glad to be back.
Now get out.
I love you too, Alex.
It's my house.
We were fine without you.
You just didn't though.
Alright.
I'm actually insulted, man. I'm actually insulted.
We'll head back to the other studio.
Yeah, you will, yeah. Right. Gonna start. Klay Thompson, he fractured his thumb. Apparently he could be out for weeks rather than days. Cillian, I'll start with you. How does this affect the Warriors?
I mean, the injury curse continues this year. How many are we having? I'm going to tally them up at the end of this season. But anyway.
For the Warriors as well.
Yeah, as you mentioned, right thumb injury. It's believed to be a fracture. I think that's confirmed now. I saw it was an article yesterday. But it's a massive effect on the Golden State Warriors. He's their best perimeter defender without a doubt. And he takes so much pressure off Curry. Because he doesn't have to exert as much energy defensively and can just concentrate on putting the ball in the basket. It's a bit surprising. Klay Thompson is an extremely durable player. He's missed only 13 games in his 7-year career and has never missed a playoff game for the Golden State Warriors. Very surprising injury. It's a massive shame, as I said. They're going to miss him. His shooting, his defense, his scoring, just his presence would be a massive hit for the Golden State Warriors. His knowledge of the system.
Yeah, Big Smokey, Klay Thompson. He suffered the injury in the second quarter versus the Timberwolves, and he's to be reevaluated on the 22nd of March. And he said, this is a quote, "I miss being down there, man." So he's obviously, not happy that he's not out there with his boys playing basketball. But you have to remember that he's been replaced by Swaggy P, and that's an obvious downgrade.
I hate to say it, I like Swaggy.
Shootings, whatever, Swaggy P on his night can put him up, but defensively, his knowledge of the system, just all around play, he's nowhere near the strength that Klay Thompson is, and it only hinders the Warriors more. They were, with the Rockets losing the last day, the Warriors had a chance to jump back up to the 1 seed, but now with Curry, Thompson, and Draymond Green, I believe, was out for a couple of games. It really hinders them, with Kevin Durant really being the only notable player on that team.
At the end of the day, they're still the Warriors. They still have a good bench. Not as good as other teams, but still a good bench. They'll still be able to win some games, finish out the season. I think it could more than confirm the Rockets getting the number 1 seed and home court advantage over the Warriors. Whether or not that matters to them is another discussion, but it's hard to say. It depends if they come back healthy, fresh for the playoffs, or during the playoffs, and if they can continue what they've been doing and make a run in the playoffs.
They're making certain now. They just need to get healthy for the playoffs. At this stage, with so many injuries, they can't really be concerned about getting the 1 seed. Whether they get it or not, they'll be unhappy. But if they're 100% ready to go for the playoffs, that'll please them fine.
Definitely.
You kind of answered my next question already, Cillian, but at the end of the day, they'll probably still be 2nd seed even with all these injuries. It's unlikely to get first, or it's just as unlikely that they'll drop down to 3rd. But
they ain't dropping the 3rd.
How does it really, make a big difference? They, even when they're fit, you'd say, well, the Rockets might still be 1 seed anyway, and this is the Warriors. Does this make a big difference in the long run?
Not a chance. They said they don't care, and if they come out and say that before playoffs even start and they've gotten some momentum behind them, they come out and say they don't want, well, not that they don't care if they have home court advantage or not. It's very confident, so you kind of have to think maybe they are that good. They may gotten better since last year. They just haven't bothered to show us. They're waiting for the playoffs to show us all how good they really are.
Yeah, and I think it's overlooked that the fact that the Warriors and the Rockets are so far ahead of everyone else, that behind them is so clustered and so unpredictable that I don't know if it'll make a difference who finishes 1 or 2. yes, home court advantage in what most people believe will be the Western Conference Finals. But aside from that, in my opinion anyways, the Warriors would finish off the Rockets in 5, maybe 6.
Maybe 4.
But first round, second round matchups, they won't make a difference because all the teams, the Rockets at 1 seed could end up getting a harder road to the conference finals than the Warriors could. If the Spurs get Kawhi back and they finish the 8th seed, and the Warriors get the Jazz in the 7th seed, I know who my money's on there.
Yeah, but if the Warriors, say an injury-riddled Warriors team, catch the Spurs, led by a healthy, fresh Kawhi Leonard, that should
But
be
it's unpredictable,
scary
like,
matchup
because
for them.
you don't know what's going to happen. So
Yeah,
1 or 2
it's too
seed,
hard
it
to
can be
say.
anything. It's going to come down to, well, the last few games, if not the last games of the season, to decide who's going to finish where. So
I just want to quickly reference our predictions for the season standings back just over a week ago, and I just want to say that this week or the last week or so, my predictions kind of look a bit ass right now.
They did anyway. not gonna lie.
just like everyone's bracket is busted. One day in a March Madness.
Man, I wanted to see a bit of Aiton, but we have to.
They got blown out
Man,
Shame.
by Buffalo. Who?
we're going from one number 1 pick to the next. Andrew Wiggins, from Aiton. Wiggins.
There's no camera now, but me and Gilly just looked at each other as if he was talking about Klay Thompson, I think.
Yeah.
That's what happened there.
Yeah.
He's 11th pick. He was 2 ones.
Arguably better than a 1 pick.
Anyway,
Anyways.
Andrew Wiggins, apparently he's unhappy with his role in the team, that he's the third man behind Butler and Towns, and he's very disappointed at this. He was number 1 pick back in 2014.
14.
And by the Cleveland Cavaliers, he was traded straight away to the Timberwolves before playing a game for the Cavs. Alex, I'm going to start with you. Does he have a point?
No. You gotta put it
Harsh.
blank like that. He doesn't have a point. He's nowhere near the level of Jimmy Butler or Karl Anthony Towns. No one's even debating that. It's just all that's really come out is that there's whispers. He's talking to teammates that he's unhappy, but I don't know what he wants. Last year he signed a 5-year, $148 million deal, committing to the team. I mean, he's got to know that a young team like the Timberwolves are looking to add more talent and a veteran to them. So to give him 5 years at that, like, you know someone's going to come in, and he needs to improve. He's in his 4th season and he was number 1 pick. So we've seen his production fall from 24 points to about 18 points this year on the same amount of shots, and it's the first year in his career that his shooting percentages have actually dropped. He's made a steady increase, and even last year and the year before, we saw him making strides in his game offensively and defensively. Can't speak. But I remember, what comes to my head, was it 2 years ago when he hit that fadeaway shot over Kobe Bryant in his last year.
Oh, he's the next Kobe.
And everyone said he's the next Kobe. He ran back on defense and he said, what did he say? I'll learn that from you. Or that's your move. Something along them lines.
Yeah, like you said it all, really. Andrew Wiggins, he said reports came out that he said he's unhappy as a third option. Whether or not they're true could be questioned. It could be a guy, maybe Jeff Teague, spreading rumours, trying to start beef in the locker room. You never know.
Jeff Teague?
He's the first name that came to my head.
He's annoyed ever since he bodied Rubio. Do you see that?
No.
He was going down straight inside Rubio. Rubio got bounced off the court.
But you can see where Wiggins is coming from. He's not as involved in the offense. He was the kind of number 1, maybe number 2. It kind of switched between number 1, number 2 option on offense, but switching between him and Karl Anthony Towns. This year he's the undisputed third option on offense. And when he doesn't get as many chances on offense as he did last year, when you consider how bad he is on defense, it doesn't make for a very useful player, to be quite honest. It's kind of sad, really. He had come in the league with so much potential, and he still obviously can reach the potential he has.
Can't write him off yet.
You can't write him off, but
But is he the biggest bust of all time, Killian?
No. Just trying to grab people's attention here.
That was for drama, if no one realised.
But that's about it. I think one thing is, I saw this as a bit crazy. His first 3 years in the league, he shot almost exactly 76% from the free throw line. It was about 76, 76.1, that kind of thing. This year he's down to 64%.
Confidence.
Which is a massive drop. Yes, you said confidence, maybe. It's hard to say.
I don't think he might not be getting the kind of shots he like. He's known, he likes him. Again, what's wrong today? Come on.
Just out of school, we're tired.
It's Oisin being back, I think.
Screw you.
He likes to take some of them mid-range shots. I think maybe fading away.
Post fade,
stuff like that. And a lot of that Jimmy Butler likes to do. So you can look at stats and but from watching the game, he might not be getting into the same positions that he used to be, where he likes to shoot from his hot spots maybe, and that Jimmy Butler could have taken away from some of that. Because they are similar players offensively.
Defensively,
that's another debate altogether, but
yeah.
Offensively, they both can shoot the three. They don't really utilise it as much, but they both like driving inside, shooting mid-range shots.
Yeah, it's a tough one. They're both, like you said, very similar players. They have a similar role. Wiggins, he has the potential.
Except Wiggins is the third role.
Wiggins has the potential to be a Jimmy Butler kind of player on defense. He just doesn't try at all. That was one of his main kind of assets coming into the draft, coming into the NBA. Everyone said he has so much defensive potential. He could be an offensive juggernaut as well as a defensive one, but he just hasn't shown that in the NBA. He's a poor defender. Karl Anthony Towns is the same. They just don't try enough on defense, which is shocking from a Tom Thibodeau-led team, to be quite honest.
I feel like, at least looking from Wiggins' stats, that maybe he still hasn't adjusted to the new NBA where the three-point is so prominent. He shoots... This season he's been shooting 32% from the three. He's been attempting about 4 of them a game. He isn't efficient enough from the three for a modern NBA player. Maybe you could say that's where his problems lie.
Could be. I've said this a lot. Players like Wiggins, maybe not so much Wiggins, but DeMar DeRozan would be an absolute beast if they played back in the 90s, where mid-range shots were a lot more frequent and it was kind of the dawn of athletic freaks of shooting guards like Michael Jordan and Clyde Drexler, and they like dominated the game of basketball. Their mid-range abilities, their driving abilities. We see that a lot from DeMar DeRozan. But in today's NBA, he's still an amazing player, but he doesn't have that three-pointer that the NBA
holds him back.
Emphasizes nowadays. Oh,
It's alright for stars to not have a three-pointer because they can do so much else. They're the primary. I was going to say primarily.
Get your head in the game, Alex.
They're the primary ball handler for their team, but Wiggins is not. Maybe if he has the ball in his hand more, he can do more with it, and he wouldn't be as reliant on the three-pointer. But when a lot of it is playing off-ball, and if the ball's not in the hand of Teague, it's in Butler, and if it's not Butler, it's Karl Anthony Towns. So Wiggins might not be getting the opportunity on ball, and he hasn't shown that he can play off the ball, which every NBA player needs.
He's shooting 3 less shots per game compared to last season. I haven't watched a lot of the Timberwolves this season, but everything in the stats line points to him. You can clearly tell that there's someone else in the pecking order who's joined ahead of him, and it's hard to adjust to new teammates at times. But you kind of feel that maybe it won't happen. It's almost been a whole season now. Maybe it's a bit rash, but should he be looking at moving on if someone else in that team does not?
Possibly. He's not going anywhere in free agency.
Locked down.
He's locked down until 2023 on a monster contract. It would have to be a trade, and while he can be traded, he's not like a LeBron James where it's just like, what would you package to trade for LeBron James? He could definitely be traded, but if you were the Timberwolves, looking back, right now it might be too early to say, but looking back, would you trade Wiggins to the Bulls instead of Zach LaVine?
Right now, yeah. We had this conversation earlier about even looking back right now, was the trade a bad idea?
Yeah.
Forget the Wiggins. Take Jimmy Butler out of the occasion. We saw Wiggins making strides. Zach LaVine was only going to get better. Chris Dunn wasn't given enough time. Larry Markkinen looks like he would have fit in perfectly with this new look Wolves. And I said it earlier to Killian as well, that Wiggins and Towns have been forced pretty much to be superstar level now. It's win now. They've been getting better, with Wiggins slowly better. Towns, obviously, he was at the top from the second he walked into the league. But they've been put under dramatic pressure, which they haven't been before. Every year it was kind of, oh, well, the Wolves improved this year, maybe this year, next year's their year. And they never kind of did that. But now, all of a sudden, like that, they have to be good. They don't have a choice. Their expectations are there.
Yeah, you can definitely see that. As you said, every year they were in the NBA, it was kind of just like, just do what you want. We're not trying to win. Just try and grow as a player, improve, do that kind of thing. And then suddenly, Jimmy Butler comes in. It's like, yeah, you have to step up,
And they're
win
a win
now.
now team.
You have to win now. You have to step up so we can win with Jimmy Butler in this team. And it's unfair on Wiggins and Towns.
Oh, is it unfair, though? It's not
I'd
unfair.
say it is. They would have been so much better off if they had a bunch of young guys and just let them all grow together.
Like
They would have been.
a farm of young players.
They would have such a good young team.
But Wiggins is a number 1 overall pick 4 years into his career. He's got to be nearly at a level at this stage. From a number, I can just think back to a few episodes ago when I was talking about Dwayne Wade, the 5th overall pick, and by his 3rd season he was a Finals MVP. He pretty much carried his team to an NBA Finals win.
Even James Harden, he's not known as having kind of the best start to his career. 3 years in, he was in the NBA Finals, 6th man of the year. I'd say that's better than where Wiggins is right now, 4 years into his career.
You'd say you just know. We all know. That's Wiggins. I know he hasn't been playing in a good team for his career so far. Well, this season excluded. But I feel if he doesn't improve drastically in the next season, we'd be saying he was a very bad bust. I mean, we can say now we can still give him a bit more time. He's only 22 years old. I think we might be forgetting that a little bit, but it doesn't look good.
I think bust, it depends how you kind of think of a bust. Obviously, if you compare him to Anthony Bennett, he's not a bust in any way, shape or form. But if you just think of it, he's a number 1 pick. You expect so much out of your number 1 pick. But if we redrafted the 2014 draft, he wouldn't be in my top 5.
Yeah, true. But just taking out from your point, a bust is someone who doesn't feel their potential, and Wiggins hasn't to any form, I think it's fair to say. Looking back at some of the guys that were drafted ahead of him, or behind him, there's Embiid, Jokic would be the main ones. They're
definitely
without
better.
question ahead
Without
of him.
question.
But even there's guys who've come on like LaVine, Parker, Aaron Gordon, Gary Harris, Marcus Smart, Julius Randle, who's really come on this year. So all them guys have made strides, big strides, a lot bigger than Wiggins. And Wiggins, he seems to whisper to teammates that he's unhappy. It seems like he's kind of sitting back and sulking about it, rather than going out there and doing something about it. If he can show that he's the second best player on the team and get more shots and show why he's there,
He won't have to complain. They'll be given to him.
get himself out the number 3 role.
Force himself. He has to say, Jimmy Butler, I'm better than you. I deserve those shots that you're taking. And he has to prove that rather than just sulking about it.
Because unless it's really bad, like a Kyrie Irving situation where he says he just boycott the year, then I don't know if the Wolves would trade him anytime soon. Because
he doesn't have much value. You get something out of him, but you wouldn't get anything crazy.
His contract is too big. I mean,
for the player that he is, it's way too big.
You wouldn't get much out of him.
there are teams, and I'm thinking mainly of the Brooklyn Nets, who over the last couple of years have paid too much for mediocre players. But I feel would a team take a risk on him? I couldn't see a good team taking a risk on him. He won't be in any better situation than he is in with the Timberwolves now. Maybe if he has his own team he can do something, but if he has his own team, I don't see that team going anywhere.
The only team I could see him going to is the one that takes all the contracts, the Nets. But I don't know what the Nets will package for him if they want to give up. They're not going to give up Russell. If they give up Lynn, they don't want to get rid of any more of their picks.
Well,
So
They're not getting rid of any picks for the next 40 years. Not after what they went through.
Poor guys. Hey, they still beat the Magic. Anyway, and now we're going to talk about this year's Hall of Fame class. Some of this year's finalists
it's a
include
good one.
Very
Steve
good one.
Nash, Jason Kidd, Ray Allen, Grant Hill,
And Chris Webber.
and Chris Webber.
Forget about Chris Webber.
It's a lot better than last year's, I tell you that much.
Right, we'll start with Steve Nash, Killian.
Everyone knows Steve Nash, an absolute wizard on the basketball court. 2-time MVP. A lot of people say maybe he shouldn't have won those MVPs, but whether or not you think that, he's a 2-time MVP. Doesn't change the fact. God knows how many All-Star games and All-NBA teams he's made, but it's a lot. He ran the offense of the Phoenix Suns.
7 seconds.
The 7 seconds or less Mike D'Antoni offense back in the 2000s, 2006 kind of year side.
Alongside Amari
Amari
Stoudemire,
Stoudemire. They had
Sean
some,
Marion.
Joe Johnson was at that team at
Joe
some point.
Johnson.
They had some team back in the day. He's without a doubt making the Hall of Fame. I don't think there's any question about
100%.
it. He's making the Hall of Fame.
I
First
think
ballot.
I'd like to mention when we talk about Steve Nash, how overlooked his defense was. Now you might be looking at me kind of funny, his defense, but he stole 2 MVP trophies from the NBA.
Oh, piss off. I thought you were going somewhere with this.
Maybe he deserved one, but you can't tell me that Kobe Bryant averaged 37 points in the season on his own and didn't win MVP.
And them Lakers didn't go nowhere.
What did Nash win in his career in the playoffs?
They made a Western Conference Finals. It's not like Kobe won a championship that year.
Yeah, but he won 5 of them.
He didn't win them that year, so why should he win the MVP for that year? They go 2006. Oh, Kobe.
So,
He
5-time champ,
three-peated back in
5-time
the day.
champ, 5-time champ, 1 MVP, no-time champ, 2 MVPs.
And?
MVP is for the regular season.
Yeah.
When you look back at their resumes, 2 looks a lot better than 1 does.
Like, we ain't comparing Nash to Bryant. Like, there's no question who's
Yeah,
the better
Nash
player.
is just
Triggered every
obviously way
time.
better.
Triggered.
Alright, so Steve Nash, the verdict is he gets in.
No
100%.
question about it. I'm not going to say anything just in case, but he's making the Hall of
Bit
Fame.
my house on it.
Okay, guys, Jason Kidd. Start with you, Alex.
Again, he's kind of a similar to Nash. Maybe might be unfair to say, but he's kind of a poor man's Nash.
He's
He
a
is
bit
getting the
better
Hall of
defensively,
Fame.
but
A bit better defensively, but he never stole an MVP off anyone. Jason Kidd, poor Jason Kidd got fired earlier on in the year. But
Giannis
yeah,
was
as a
devastated
player,
anyway.
As a player in his early days, even with the Mavericks, he's showing off with them passing. Kind of I don't want to say the typical, but one of them white point guards, small, that were so crafty with the ball.
Just had to bring race into it, didn't you, Alex?
Well, it's true. Alongside maybe him, Jason Williams, guys like Steve Nash, so many of them, so fun to watch. So the way they could affect the game without putting the ball in the basket was unbelievable. And again, pretty much guaranteed for the Hall of Fame.
Well, like, you talk about how he impacted the game. 5-time assist champion. I mean, I know we
Outrageous.
don't really talk about assists that much. Like, in his career he averaged 12.6 points per game. You know, nothing special.
yeah.
He's not a scorer. That's the
He's not a scorer. He's 10-time All-Star. I mean, what you say Steve Nash was? How many?
I said
A
God
lot.
knows how many.
God knows.
A lot.
Right.
God knows
Right.
how many.
I
But
mean,
is he as good as Lonzo Ball though? Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lonzo drew comparisons to Jason Kidd, and if Lonzo can get anywhere near what Jason Kidd's done as a Hall of Famer, then I think he'd be pretty happy.
You can see the comparisons. Jason Kidd couldn't shoot the 3-pointer for the life of him when he came into the NBA, but now I'm pretty sure he's top 10 in the all-time 3-pointers made list.
He came on late in his career and did
Yeah.
a job for that Mavericks team that won a ring
Just
with
shot
Dirk.
the 3 ball.
He just shot that 3. He let it fly.
I think something
Back
kind
to his
of
team he got
funny,
drafted with.
kind of worth noting though. In the Mavericks back in the day when Kidd was young enough, Nash was traded to those Mavs, wasn't he? He played behind Jason Kidd, I'm pretty sure, which is kind of. And then Nash went back to the Suns, won 2 MVPs. So I think something else as well. Was Kate on the Nets?
He
when
was.
They were
Yeah.
making the
With
finals?
KG. Oh no, he's on
No,
New
he was
Jersey
making the
Nets.
finals.
Excuse me.
New Jersey Nets.
Excuse me.
That could have been beaten by the Sacramento Kings in the NBA Finals, but we'll crack on. We'll crack on.
Ooh, the Sacramento Kings with Chris Webber.
With Chris Webber, one of the best players on that team. Chris Webber is also a Hall of Fame finalist this year.
Going for it a long time.
He retired in 2008. This will be probably, well, maybe not his 10th year in the running for it, but his 10th year since he retired. Chris Webber, he's a lot on his resume. He was the 1994 Rookie of the Year after being traded away from the Orlando Magic, who originally picked him. He's a 5-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA selection, and the 1999 rebounding champion. And in the time where Shaquille O'Neal was dominating the NBA. Quite an accomplishment. It's hard to say whether or not Chris Webber will make it.
He flew under the radar.
Yeah, well, like we none of us ever really watched him play, unfortunately. He was making the finals before we were born, but sure. He's
just listening to his Roll of Honor. You feel like that's good enough to get in eventually. Maybe not this year, but if he comes in with a maybe a bad class in a few years' time, you don't see why not.
We have to give it to someone.
And it's overlooked the fact that it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. He
was
won.
a monster in college.
He was a monster in college. He won himself. I think he won 2 NCAA tournaments. He definitely won one. I'm really sure he might have won 2. I don't have the stats to back it up, but he definitely won one in college. He was a monster in college, and obviously came into the NBA and did a lot of that same work.
It's worth noting, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame, not the NBA Hall of Fame.
Ray Allen. Obviously, me and Alex know a lot about Ray Allen, and you do too, Killian.
Rebound, Bosh, back out, Allen. His 3-pointer.
Timeless.
Tie game with 5 seconds remaining.
Wow.
Anyway.
Right. I feel like he's getting in. I think he needs
the least. Kind of the vibe with this class.
Unless Rondo stops him.
He needs. He does like. I think he gets in ahead of anyone else in this class. He's just.
Yeah.
He just does.
He's a ring.
Let's talk about him anyway. We'll elaborate. I'll start with you, Killian.
He's a 2-time champion. A lot of All-Star teams, a lot of All-NBA teams.
Sharpshooter.
He's currently number 1 in the all-time three-pointers made list. So that's going to change sometime soon. He's going to go down to 3, I'd say. Curry and Thompson overtaking him. But right now, when he's inducted, he will be number 1. That's all that matters. Like you said, he's definitely making the Hall of Fame. He's been brilliant pretty much every year he went. In Seattle, Milwaukee first, then Seattle. Traded to Boston, he won a championship with them. Then he finished his career out in Miami with LeBron, winning the championship in 2013 with them. He's a brilliant player. He's making the Hall of Fame, so there's not really much else to say.
Alex?
Yeah, but again, people just think as late years how he was a shooter, but people forget in Seattle and Milwaukee he
could throw it down.
He was the star of that team and he could throw it down. He was doing a lot more than just spotting up in the corner. In Boston and in Miami, it suited his role to just spot up in the corner, shoot them 3-pointers.
Helped everyone else stretch the floor.
Yeah, but in his early days, that wasn't really his role. Like they were his teams pretty much, and he kind of took over.
That was it. He's making the Hall of Fame. No question.
Jesus Shuttlesworth, Hall of Famer.
Make the Hall of Fame the nickname Hall of Fame.
The
nickname
It's
Hall
up
of Fame.
there.
I'm going to make it a thing. Just letting you know.
Sponsored by the Eurostep.
Okay, before we go, St. Giles were in action twice this week.
Back-to-back games.
Wednesday and Thursday.
It's not quite a 5-7, but it's as close as you'll get here in Ireland. So guys, what happened?
You weren't there to see, Oisin.
So I guess I'll never know.
Yeah, well, have a guess. The trend of everything that's been happening.
Well, the first year's won and the second year's lost.
Banger.
The second year's couldn't shoot. Right, so let's go into a bit more detail.
Yeah,
First year's on Wednesday, had a big comeback win. I think they
Big
came back
comeback
from about
win.
12 points down, and they got the victory 29-25. Second years on Wednesday lost, and you like to say that they're getting better, but they were just demolished by Gordon Arabi's team that was far bigger, stronger. They were throwing lobs at one stage.
Yeah.
it was
That was
getting out of
embarrassing.
hand.
Me and Jamie at the table were like,
That
nah.
finished 34-15 to Gordon Arabi.
That's pretty much it. Like you said, first year's made an unreal comeback. In the first game, they were down 14-2 after the first quarter
Playing inspired.
and beat them 27-11 for the rest of the game. Absolutely amazing. We've said this time and time again. They're an absolutely brilliant team. I'm excited to see how far they can go. And unfortunately for the second years, you'll see in about 10 to 15 seconds, they're not looking good. Their season isn't looking good. It's a
Yeah.
shame.
Again, now on Thursday, first years, we were in Carrick and Shannon, and first years again with the comeback victory.
Hold it out.
They were down 9 points with
4 minutes left.
under 3 minutes.
Under 3 minutes.
Under 3 minutes left, and they got the victory 28-26 with some big buckets down the end, a couple of 3-pointers.
We're not going to name any names, but
some clutch
number
layups
11, you know
bounced-
who you are.
You know who you are.
9 points in about a minute and a half. Absolutely amazing. A step back 3 when he had gone like 0 for 5 for the game. He had a free throw, another step, not a step back, another 3. 2 more free throws to tie the game. Absolutely amazing. I think we both said this, Alex. That is the most clutch performance we've ever seen.
From a
NBA, anything.
From a game they needed to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, is it up there with T-Max? 13 points in 33 seconds.
13 points in 33 seconds. It's like, yeah, but that's a professional athlete. This is what, like a 13-year-old from Ireland. He is
7th grader.
7th grader from Ireland. He is like 9 points in about somewhere between 60 to 90 seconds.
Let's not forget, basketball isn't even his first sport.
Absolutely amazing.
And then again with the second years, they were having fun out there, but they kind of seemed to come along. Like they lost the game in the end, but they only lost by 5 points, 23-18. But they looked like they were having fun out there, and they put their heart and soul in the court, but they couldn't get a victory all season
Shame.
long. But
Is this
what
the
can
end?
you do?
Is this the end of the season for them?
This is the end of the road for the second years. But hopefully, for the first years, they're heading to the playoffs. Hopefully, they can do some damage in All Ireland's.
Go a bit further, hopefully the semis.
You feel like when you go through a game like that, it just gives you a bit of extra belief in yourselves. You feel like if I go through that, I can go through anything. And if they carry that momentum with them, I can't see why they won't at least, win the regionals.
It was a playoff atmosphere in there as well. You could see at the end of the game, players were
Everyone was getting
ecstatic.
hyped.
It was mentally. Let's calm them down and make sure they remember to shake the other team's hands.
Yeah.
Carrick and Shannon have always been great opponents. St. Giles, I remember when we played them back in first year, and they're the only team who could beat us up until the All Ireland series. They've really proven themselves as a quality basketball school, and hopefully Giles can do the same.
Yeah, that's pretty much it from the games. But quickly on Thursday, we had a good halftime performance from one of our helpers. Again, we're not going to name names. Well, we just did.
Just put in the comments again there. That was
My man
beautiful.
Jamie. That was absolutely
man.
crazy.
Running up the wall, the windmill slam, cut his hand,
This guy's like
and then get told off by the coach.
This guy's
of the
like
other team.
5'7" and he nearly threw down a windmill. Granted, he jumped off the wall, but still, man. Still. Have to give it to him.
Leave that part out.
What a
Good
halftime
clickbait.
show.
Parkour dunk. Right. Remember to check us out on social media. We are Team Eurostep on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And if you enjoy our content, make sure to support us on Patreon. As much as €1 helps, we are Team Eurostep there as well. So make sure to give us a look. So, goodbye from Killian, a goodbye from Alex, and a goodbye from me.